Well, 6 years ago, Melbourne Dr Jereth Kok came under secret investigation by the Medical Board of Australia after two anonymous complaints were filed regarding his personal social media posts. These posts were about same-sex marriage, transgenderism, radical feminist theory and various conservative political issues. The complaints were not made by any of his patients. In 2019, he was suspended from practicing as a family GP despite a 15-year unblemished record. In July of this year, he finally went on trial in the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. Dr Kok joins me now. Dr Kok, thanks for your time. This is a terrible story of yet another person being dragged before tribunals and human rights commissions over social media posts which may not accord with certain people's world views. What's it been like for you over these last few years to not be able to work and to have your reputation as a GP tarnished in this way?
Sure. Well, it's something you know a bit about, isn't it?
Yes, I do.
Getting dragged before these sorts of bodies. What's it like? Well, I could give you a very sort of long answer to that, but it has been, in one word, unpleasant. Obviously, the worst thing was their decision to suddenly suspend me from being able to work. And when you're qualified as a doctor and you work as a doctor and they say you can't work as a doctor anymore, well, that leaves you with very few options or no options. You can't just go down the street to another employer and say, "Oh, I'll work for you instead." I mean, my employer had no problem with me at all. It's a case of, well, you just can't be a doctor in this country anymore. So then you have to decide, well, do I move country or find another thing to do?
Yep. So how have you supported yourself? How have you supported yourself and your family over these past few years while you've been suspended?
Yeah, sure. So I was suspended in the middle of 2019 and in 2020, 2021, I was able to get a bit of Centrelink. I decided that I had to, when I got the sense that this was going to drag on and on and on, and this wasn't going to be resolved quickly, I decided I had to find another way to make a living. So I started to do a course and retrain myself, and so that entitled me to a bit of OS study. So I went essentially 3 years without any kind of income other than Centrelink, but I guess we were provided for by that and the grace of God. And I've been able to work in the last couple of years in a new and different career. So that's been a blessing.
Yep. So Jereth, just in July, a couple of months ago, you went on trial in the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. Where is that process at now? Presumably you're waiting for a decision.
Not quite yet. The trial at the end of July, that was a 5-day hearing where it was basically evidence being given by myself. So I had to get up on the witness stand and face cross-examination from the barristers, or from my barrister and from the other side's barrister, and a couple of 5 expert witnesses gave evidence as well. And that hearing was essentially about getting all the witnesses to have their say, including me. And then now we're sort of adjourned while both sides write up their legal arguments, and then there'll be another hearing in October where they give their legal arguments and closing arguments, and then they will go away and make a decision about.
This could continue to drag on well into next year and possibly beyond. If it's anything like the experience I've been through in the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal, so far it's been a 4-year process. You've been at this for many years as well. You had the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, APRA, calling legal and medical experts to testify against you. What did they say about you?
Well, their initial approach was to get a. So the main, I guess you could say that the main issue that they have with me, there's several, but the biggest one is the issue of transgender ideology and the whole question of transitioning people from sort of one gender to another, or one sex to another, the gender transition industry, as you might call it, and
which is very harmful to children, of course, as has been found through the CAS review in the UK. There's no question about it. So why is there a problem with you raising concerns about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's disastrous, it's unethical, it causes terrible damage to people. But I've raised concerns about it, and they brought in an expert witness who is somebody who is in favour of that kind of gender transition process, or gender affirmation, as they call it. He works in that space. He's a professor of medicine. They got him to say that, you know, this is the good and right thing we should be doing for children who are confused about whether they're a boy or girl. We ought to be doing these things. These are standard. They're accepted around the world, and you know, to criticise them is to be fringe and irresponsible. And
so they're saying Dr. Hilary Cass in the UK is fringe and irresponsible, and that Keir Starmer, the new UK Prime Minister who's upheld the ban on puberty blockers and surgery on minors, are fringe.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this is something that I guess is a consequence of this thing dragging out for so long. When they first got him in 2020, I think an argument could plausibly perhaps be made that there is more of a consensus about this than there is now. So in 2020, those of the pro-transition ideology, you know, we're kind of able to say that this is what we do. This is, you know, there's a whole world universal consensus about this. It's the settled science, right?
But even so, Jereth, even so, you know, you should be entitled to your opinion. People in a free society should be allowed to disagree with so-called consensus. Obviously, time's moved on and it's been completely debunked, but nonetheless, it's no reason to drag a doctor through a tribunal and to suspend him from his livelihood.
I don't know. I mean, they thought it was back then, and I think that as these years have gone past, as we've seen, it's certainly this so-called consensus has disintegrated.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at some of the. Let's have a look at some of the social media posts that got you into trouble. Just people watching this might be thinking, "Well, this is crazy. What's happened to this guy? What on earth has he done to get himself dragged through this legal process?" Now, the US satirical website, the Babylon Bee, last week ran a story about your case with the headline: "Australian doctor might lose medical licence for sharing Babylon Bee articles." Now, Babylon Bee will be familiar with many people. Let's have a look at some of your social media posts. There's one on screen now of a guillotine post about the bee in the LGBTIQA plus being guillotined. Obviously, the ideologues don't like the idea that people could be bisexual. Just explain why you put that post up.
Oh, that one, that one's from a few years ago. That's about the bee bisexual, implying that there are two genders, which goes against this idea that there are 70 genders, and so it just undermines the the acronym itself. Has an incoherence to it that
that's fair comment, I would have thought, but of course they've gone through your social media posts. Another one they dragged up was one on abortion. I think we've got that one as well. I totally agree with what you're saying here. If we've got that one on the screen, looks like we may not have that. You also put up a post about pronouns, about the military, the US military, not having, their enemies fighting against them simply by using their incorrect pronouns. Tell us about what was behind that post.
I love the Babylon Bee. They post, they put up very, very funny things which cut to the heart of what's going on, I think. And, this one, like all of the others, satire and humour is a great way of taking down some of these absurd ideologies, I think.
So you're on trial, essentially, for promoting satire that undermines the worldview of certain people who believe in gender fluidity and radical sexualised concepts. They don't like the fact that their ideas can be the subject of satire. Is that essentially why you're on trial?
Well, I'm in trouble for something like 80 different Facebook posts and an article I wrote in Eternity News some years ago. So some of these things are humour and satire. A large number of them are, and and others are, serious comments, serious statements where I state my opposition to this ideology, and I state my opposition to puberty blockers and so forth. So there's a mix of things. So some of the things are most definitely humour and satire from the Babylon Bee and so forth, and other things are serious. One of the things I'm in trouble for is sharing something that you posted a few years ago.
Right.
It was something out of your blog. That's what you do on social media. You see something from somebody you follow, and that might be you, that might be Matt Walsh, and you share that, and they've captured all these sorts of things in my my folder of crimes. So.
And Dr. Kok, you don't even know who your accusers are. Is that correct, or were they revealed in your trial in VCAT in July?
No, it's been kept confidential. They're two people, two sort of members of the public who I will probably never find out who they are. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me who they are. I think.
How can this happen in Australia? Is that I mean, people watching this must go, is this the free country that we all thought we lived in? This is more like, East Berlin in the 1950s.
Yeah, well, I'm in trouble for saying things like that as well. So during the lockdowns, I said, this feels like we're living in communist Russia. This feels like we're living in East Berlin, and they've captured those sorts of things too, and say you can't say those things as a doctor, even a suspended doctor, you can't say those sorts of things. So
Dr. Kok, if you win your case, and as you say, it looks like the process is going to drag at least well into next year. Let's just say you win, which you should by any pub test. Will you be entitled to compensation for the years that you've not been able to work and feed your family?
I'm not confident I'll win. I mean, I think this is Victoria, and things here are quite, captured by these sorts of woke ideologies. So I don't expect to be. I would be very surprised, put it that way, if they find me innocent on all charges. But let's just say a miracle happens, and they say that, actually, we find none of these allegations against you. Maybe I don't know. Like, there may be a process that I can go through to say, well, if you found me innocent in the end, then why did you suspend me for all this time? And am I entitled to compensation? But I honestly don't know whether there is such a process.
Look, it was a rhetorical question, Dr. Kok. I'm 99% sure there is no ability. It's a no-cost jurisdiction, just like my case with the drag queens up in the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal. This is shocking. Your lawyers are the Human Rights Law Alliance. They're my lawyers as well. They represent a lot of persecuted Australians who have come foul of essentially LGBTIQA plus activists who are weaponising very flawed anti-discrimination laws. Are there any politicians in your corner that are advocating publicly to get the law changed?
Which law in particular?
Well, I assume you've been brought before the tribunal under the Victorian Anti-Discrimination Act. No, it's not. Not anti-discrimination law in this case. For me, it's just simply medical regulation or health practitioner regulation. So right.
It's the
professional bodies that are going after you.
The body that governs. Yeah, that's right. It's a professional misconduct sort of.
But nonetheless, where's the political cover for freedom of speech for a doctor to be able to practice his profession, but also to engage in public policy debate on social media? I mean, surely there must be some advocates in your corner.
I think at a low level. It exists. Part of the issue, I think, is that my story hasn't come to the attention of many politicians. Perhaps we should try and alert some of the, particularly the Victorian ones, of what's happened. But it simply hasn't received enough coverage out there in the sort of larger world. I think a lot of Christians know about what's happening. Quite a few doctors know about what's happening, but the wider world, and that includes the politicians, haven't really taken notice, and it probably simply hasn't come to their attention. So.
Yeah, that's a shame. More needs to be done to elevate your case and for people to be aware. I'm sure if mainstream Australians knew what was happening to you, there would be outrage. But of course, the media are not interested in fairly reported cases like yours or mine or many others who find themselves in similar positions. Dr. Kok, that's all we have time for today. Sorry, finish off and then we'll have to close.
Oh yeah, I think what I've found is that when mainstream people, you know, who are not necessarily Christians and so forth, find out what's happened, they tend to say, look, may not agree with the guy, but what he's been through, and to have your job taken away for years and years and years, you know, that's just outrageous. That tends to be the response that I do hear from people.
No, absolutely. Well, look, I'd encourage all of our viewers and listeners today to go to the Human Rights Law Alliance website to make a donation to help fund the legal defence of people like yourself and so many others. I really appreciate your time, Dr. Kok, and we'll continue to follow your case with great interest.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Kyle. Thank you.